Humans are created with capacity to choose. Humans are created. So my son's at zoo camp. He's 8 years old. He's paired up with a partner, and they're walking around. He said actually he wanted to channel the spirit of a kangaroo. So he hopped the whole way through the tour of the zoo, and they got to the ape section. And the teacher, the leader of the group said, "Look around, guys, look around. This is where you came from. This is where you're from." Now listen, he wasn't homeschooled, so he went to science class. We don't have any problems with that. Right? So, but he's walking, he's taking this in, just 8-year-old brain, he's taking this in, he's hopping with his partner, and they're walking away from this ape section, and he says to his partners, "What if we didn't?" His partner says, "What? What if we didn't what?" He goes, "What if we didn't come from there?" And his partner says, "Well, where do we come from then?" And my son looks at his partner with these big eyes, and he says, "What if we were created by God?" His partner's like, "Whoa." Mind blown. What if we weren't just functional commodities? What if we weren't just accidental cosmic mistakes? What if we weren't just, the functional people? What if we weren't just created based for what we could do? What if it's not just about how we could serve or how great we could lead? Or what if it's not just this thing that we're stuck in, this pattern of life? What if it isn't just this existential thing that we just happen to be and all matter is? What if we were created by God for something special? And this, you can hear the writer of Genesis in our mind when the Israelites, all the commentators and theologians say that Genesis was written when the Israelites had been convinced, because they'd been captured and they'd been recaptured and they'd been reoccupied and they'd been occupied again. And somewhere in their psyche, they had taken on this status quo of their society that said your only worth, your only value is how you serve the king, how you serve Pharaoh, that this is what you were born for, some kind of servitude, some kind of function, some kind of a commodity. And the writer of Genesis so subversively, with the eyes of an 8-year-old boy hopping around a zoo camp, said, "Have I got a story for you? You were created by God for something special." What it means to be human is that you were created with capacity. So Muhammad Yunus is one of my favorite people on the planet. He's the founder of the Grameen Bank. He's a Bangladeshi man, received a Nobel Peace Prize. He left the economics, the echelons of economics in the country to spend a whole year of his life trying to figure out how he could break extreme poverty, the hold of extreme poverty in the poorest of the poor in Bangladesh. The Grameen Bank sort of helped strategize this microcredit program that's going all around the world. And he spent a whole year, and he realized that women were disproportionately impoverished. And he realized that it actually wasn't their fault. I just want to say this line for fun. It's not the woman's fault. Tweet that. Somebody, please. For the people in the back. He came out on a platform, a speech at the UN, and he said, "Here's the deal, here's the seed. Every human being is this seed. And the potential of this seed is to grow a plant or is to grow a tree, but it's even bigger than that. The potential of the seed is not only to grow one tree, but it's to actually grow an entire forest, an entire ecosystem. The potential in the seed is the potential in every human being. The problem's not the seed." This is what he discovered as an economist. This is what he discovered a whole year of talking to the poorest of the poorest, illiterate women in the bushes of Bangladesh. He said what he discovered is the problem was not them. The problem is that their capacity had been planted in a container that was too small, in a container that restricted them, in a container that contained them. Do you know what happens when you put a tree, an actual tree, into a container? It dies. It dies. Do you know what happens when you put a plant into a container? It stops growing. This capacity that exists because you were created by God, that same imago Deo, that creative energy, that's what we've been hearing about this whole entire session. That exists inside of every single person, this capacity. And what limits people's capacity is not them, it's this. And this container has 1,000 different names. Theological circles will call it sin that tries to strangle us. We could call this racism that tries to limit and control. I was speaking in Haiti. I traveled there with compassion to meet my sponsor child, to tell him thank you for saving me from my insatiated appetite for lattes and meaningless consumption. Thank you. God, save me. Literally, it's about a latte a week he saves me from. In a life that resists talking about extreme poverty, he also saves me from this like weird thing of like abundance culture without ever even addressing hunger in the world. I mean, he saves me from so much. I went there to thank him. And while I was in Haiti, I spoke at this church, and they'd never had a woman speaker before. And I spoke, and I was translated into Creole. And I was talking about how to overcome oppression. And you know when you're talking, you're speaking, this might happen to you, you're talking to your young people even, and they're just like not getting it. And I just kept saying, like I had this line about like overcoming oppression, and I could see people were like whispering and kind of like looking at me weird. And it's just like, I could see like someone at the back, I could literally hear their thoughts. Like, this is why we don't let women speak. You know, they're just like, this is making, and then finally I figured out that actually Creole doesn't have a word for oppression. The closest word that the interpreter could find, the translator could find for oppression was asthma. So like finally they had a practical sermon, you know, how to fight back against asthma. Like finally, you know, I've been waiting all my life. What do I do to overcome my asthmatic condition? Finally. And we laughed about it, always thought it was really funny, but then when I was thinking about it, I was like, that's a pretty good word for oppression. Asthma. What does it do? What does asthma do? It restricts. You can't breathe. Does that sound familiar? I can't breathe. It's not the women. It's not the capacity to be human, to be wonderfully and terribly human, is to know that you're created with capacity. We got to break the containers.